Hi there, and welcome here to Seismic Radio, to Crusader Radio and BPN Radio. Talk today is Pearls Before Swine. Pearls Before Swine. And if you're not familiar with the Bible, this is one of those things where you probably think, what? Yeah, what is this got to do with the Bible? But yeah, it's been mentioned. It's been mentioned in the Bible. And in Matthew 7:6 it says, "Do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you in pieces." Right, pearls before swine. Okay, let me start off with asking you a question, and it's a very important question. Maybe a question that defines your life. And the first question will be, what is the most precious thing in your life? Yeah, maybe most precious thing, the word thing is not right. What is most precious in your life? Yeah. And if I ask you this, and a couple of answers which might come up, maybe you've got like a really expensive piece of jewelry, like a Rolex watch or something like that, and you might say, yeah, Rolex, that's the most expensive thing in my life. Probably the most precious one as well. I really like it, really love it. Yeah. It could be a car. Yeah, some people really love their cars, and they spend a lot of time and money on it. And they see it as an extension of the personality of the character. So they think that their car is really important to them, and it really is something that means a lot to them. You might think it's your house, the place where you live, and again, I've come across a lot of people who are really house proud, especially some ladies. For them the house is very important, needs to be very immaculate. They love it, and they see it as something that's representing them. So it's very, very precious to them. Maybe the most precious thing in their lives. It could be a hobby, maybe. Yeah, maybe you've got a hobby, you've got a collection, of coins or stamps, and there are very unique pieces amongst them. And it's really precious to you. And you might even say it's the most precious thing I possess, I have. Because you've spent years, 20, 30, 40 years in putting your collection together. And obviously that's all very materialistic. And it's, the concept is, whatever's material is comes from dust, and eventually it's going to return to dust. Also, you may have it for a time and it may be taken away from you, maybe stolen from you, confiscated. You may lose it, may get burned up or whatever. So there's a very temporary aspect to it. And then maybe you might get further and you might say, no, I'm going to have a different view on these things. So it's my family, it's my wife, my husband, my children, my parents, my grandparents, my friends, and you might have a completely different view, and you think this is really the most precious part in my life, having these people in my life. Some people, it's a career, that's precious to them, and they invest everything they have in their career. Some people think about their legacy, especially when you get older. You think about what am I going to leave behind? Am I writing a book or some memoirs? Is anybody really interested in writing stuff, or do I want to do an invention or something like that? So some people are concerned about the legacy. What are they leaving behind for the next generation? Will they be remembered? The Bible has got some very bleak outlooks on this. People come, people go. One generation comes, one generation goes, and they will not be remembered anymore. And if I kind of go back, and you may remember your parents, your grandparents. If I ask you about your great-grandparents, maybe some of you do, some of you don't. If I go one generation further back, most of you haven't got a clue what these people got up to. You don't know any of the stories or any of the things they went through. Maybe very few people where you've got like 4 or 5 generations, stories going back. But eventually the memory of you will be forgotten. And it's a sad thing, really. It's a really sad thing. If you are a Christian, and I ask you this question, what is the most precious aspect of your life? To avoid the term thing, you might say it's my faith. It's my relationship with God. And again, I would congratulate you for that and say, yeah, It's the most important thing. And sometimes I very often think to myself, let me just go back to the next slide here. Sometimes I think back on my life as well, and I think, yeah, the most important thing is I could do without a house, without a car, without friends or people around me, possibly if I had to. But I couldn't do it without God. I was 16 years old when I became a Christian. I'm now 57. I have to think about that now. You tend to think about your age as you get older. Don't keep track, with your age, with the numbers that describe you. But you come to a point where God is the most important thing in your life. And when I look back as well, I think I've been through a lot of lows and highs through my life, but I cannot imagine having gone through them without the living God. So God is important, and I think every Christian is probably going to say the same thing. And it's a bit of a trick question. What is the most precious thing, aspect, element, part of your life, in your life, of your life? And I think most Christians, if not every genuine Christian, would say it's God. And it's the relationship with God. You couldn't do without. It's like air. I mean, maybe you say it's air as well, but it's even more important than air. It's the eternity that is at stake with it. Okay. One thing as well is, how much did it cost you? Yeah. That's probably, sometimes Jesus says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And there's a lot of truth in that. If you spend a lot of money on something, if you spend a lot of money, effort, and you invest a lot into something, your heart is in it. And it becomes very precious to you. For example, if you invest a lot in your marriage or in your kids, they automatically become very precious to you. If you invest in your friends, they become very important to you. If you don't invest in them and you just sort of leave them by the wayside, they'll be less important. And so there's this link as well of, how much do you invest into it? And again, from a Christian point of view, I could say, how much do you invest in your relationship with God? How much time do you spend with God? And again, it becomes very, very important. Okay, going back, I'm talking about what is important in your life. And we've got the scenario here where we've got pearls. And you can see on the image here, it's just somebody with a hand throwing out some pearls. And throw them in front of pigs. Yeah. And pigs tend to be, they're very intelligent animals. If you ever have the privilege of hanging out with some pigs, they're very intelligent. They're not stupid, but their main interest is in food. And they probably try the pearls and they find out they don't really taste of anything. So they just leave them and they trample them in the mud. Okay, we need to sort of take one step further. We talked about precious things and what is important to you. And we've got all these aspects here as well. And the pearl is something very precious, especially when we go into antiquity, because there weren't many of them around. We need to look at pearl creation. I've got a couple of bullet points here. They tend to be in mussels and oysters. So, the little shellfish in the sea. And a foreign, potentially harmful element enters the soft tissue of this oyster or mussel. And the organism tries to protect itself and builds around it a protective layer. So it's basically an infection, some sort of infection with this this foreign element getting into the muscle, into the soft tissue, and it builds around a layer of the same stuff it makes its shell off. Potentially it's a very painful process, and it becomes bigger and bigger over time, and eventually it produces a pearl. So it takes a long time, so you're not looking at a couple of months, but you're looking at years. So when today, when they are artificial pearl producers, so they get these oysters or mussels and they deliberately place some foreign objects in the oyster, and then they put it back in the salt water, and it takes about 4 or 5 years, and then the pearl comes out, and so it makes it very rare and very precious. And today maybe less rare because we've got commercial pearl production, which is, they're synthetic pearls, and there are these pearls which are genuine pearls, but they are kind of bred. But in the olden days, and especially in the time of Christ, they were very rare and very and therefore very precious. And if you had a pearl, it was considered to be a very beautiful item, and it is. It's very smooth, slick, very beautiful indeed, and women love to use it as some sort of embroidery. So, very important to understand this. It's rare. It comes into existence out of pain, and it takes a long time to be built, and therefore it makes it even more precious. And then we've got some scripture in the Bible, and the Bible talks about pearls as well. And I'm just going to read this. This is from Matthew chapter 13. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and hid. And for joy over it, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking beautiful pearls, who, when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all he had and bought it. So we've got precious things, we've got a treasure, and we've got the pearls. Yeah? And I find it interesting as well when you look at this guy. There's this tradesman, and he wants to buy that pearl. Yeah? And the pearl is in a field, was hidden in a field. And so, being a righteous man, if he buys the field, he owns the pearl. It's pretty much if you buy a house with everything that's in it, whatever you find in the house, whether it's like a treasure of gold or something, it is yours, because you bought it with a house. And so, the man buys it. He gives everything for it. And we've got this other example about the beautiful pearls, and he just went for this one pearl of great price, and he sold everything he had to buy it. This is sort of being completely and utterly sold out for that one precious thing, for that one thing. And again, let me take it back. That one thing is your salvation. It is your reconciliation to God. It is your path of repentance, right back into the arms of the Savior. It is your being born again out of water and spirit, being born from above, being a new creation in Christ, and having a new start in your life, and having this newfound peace with God. That is a pearl of the gospel. The gospel talks about, and that is what we have and what we should treasure above all things. And again, I'm excited by this totality. The merchant, he sold everything he had to just get this pearl. And again, the treasure in the field, everything he has is sold to just get hold of this treasure. And that is really what the claim of the gospel is, to leaving everything behind and putting God first in your life, putting this relationship first in your life, the relationship between you and God, you and Christ. Not, adopting a religion and checking it out and keeping a few things and not, but no, it's being completely sold out for Christ. That is really what the message is, which is sort of hidden in this. I've got my notes here, so I'm just looking through my notes. Sorry for the break here. I'm just looking at my notes. It's one story about a guy who lost it all. Yeah. And it just sort of brings about the urgency of the gospel. There was one guy, and he was confronted with the gospel, and he said, look, I'm not interested in this Jesus stuff. My life is okay. I've got a nice job. I make good money. I've got a nice house. I've got a nice car. I've got a nice wife. I've got nice kids. Everything is fine in my life. What should I do with Jesus? Yeah. What is he going to add to my life? It's just going to be a pain. And he rejected the message of the gospel. Yeah. And again, this is pearls before swine. But this man mocked God in a way, and it all came back onto him. So one thing led to another. He fell out with his wife. His wife divorced him. She got the house because she had the kids. He couldn't get access to kids anymore. He got really depressed and frustrated about life. He lost his job. And within a very short time, within a period of months, he had lost everything. All the things which stopped him from coming to Christ, God had taken it away from him, or it has been taken away from him. Not necessarily God who has done it. But this is, you can lose it all. But in a sense, when you come to Christ and when you surrender your life to Christ, people will suddenly hate you for no reason whatsoever. Suddenly your marriage may go down because your wife, or, if you happen to be the woman and it's your husband, he doesn't like what, the new reality in your life, that Jesus Christ is in your life. They might not like it, and your partner might just break up with you, and you might lose out on it. But then the big question comes: what is more important, your marriage, your kids, or Christ or God? Bearing in mind that even though things may fall apart and are taken away, God can bring about restoration as well. But where do you stand? What is most important in your life? Then the big question is, why Jesus? Why should we go for Jesus? The answer is very, very clear. Everything. When I go through the list up here, everything these things, the Rolex, the car, the house, the real estate, the family, the husband, the wife, the kids, the friends, anything that is cost in your life, most of the items, they are all perishable. They all have got a timestamp on them, and you cannot take them. Eventually, you will have to leave them all behind. Even if you can keep them throughout your days here on earth, you will have to leave them behind. And then it's just you and God. It's just your soul and God. And the big question is, where do you stand? So why Jesus? Now, Jesus is very important because he is, or the pearl represents Jesus. He is a costly thing. Through great suffering, he provided a great salvation. And this salvation is for you. You can repent and you can be reconciled with God. All your sins can be forgiven. And you can be made right with God. But it'll cost you everything you have. And you have to be prepared to lay down everything you have. Everything comes to an end, but your relationship with Christ will never come to an end. Everything is meaningless, but your relationship with Christ will not be meaningless. It will take you into eternity. Everything you have will come to a point of total collapse, when the grave diggers clung their shovels over your grave and throw the earth over your coffin. Then it comes to an end. Anything that is happening here on earth, that is happening under the sun. So it is important to focus on the things of eternal value, and a pearl will last a very long time. I wouldn't say an eternal time, but they found pearls which are thousands of years old, and they're still okay. Still look fine. They're okay. So same with the relationship with Christ. It'll last forever. Okay. Next one, do not give. And this is, again, we're coming back. What is the whole thing about? We've got this pearl that is in Christ, this great salvation that cost God everything, that is being achieved through great suffering, through Christ's separation from the Father on the cross, because he was carrying your sin, my sin, and the sin of the world. And this is something precious and something great. And it says here, do not give what is holy to dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you in pieces. So there is something which is precious, which is absolutely amazing, which is absolutely holy, which is the biggest thing we have. And if you receive it, it's great. But again, these pearls, you can throw them before swine, before ruthless people, before people who don't want to know. And at that point, we don't have to. We don't have to, give the secrets of the kingdom of God away. People who resist against God, we can just leave them and hand them over to the devil. It sounds terrible, but ultimately that's what it is. Leave them under the influence of the enemy. And maybe one day they will come round and they will seek the salvation you have. They will be confounded, they will be confused, they will be amazed about what you have and what carries you through life. And they'll be longing to have the same. So, again, I'm just looking through my notes. Maybe it's a big mistake to have notes. I should just stick to the slides, and it'll go a lot better. Okay, Jesus sending out the disciples. Yeah, we've got a story here where Jesus sends out the disciples. He sends them out 2 and 2, and he tells them, and he says, look, go out there, proclaim the good news of the kingdom of God, and 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 if they receive you, great. But if they don't receive you, leave the city, leave the town, and shake off the dust from your feet as a witness and a testimony against them. And it'll be better for Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. Yeah, that's in Matthew chapter 10. You get the story in Luke and Mark as well, but it's literally, the way we need to do it. We have to present the gospel. And I think it's on the next slide, it's the Great Commission, which is Mark 16. He who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned. And these signs will follow those who believe in my name. They will cast out demons, they will speak new tongues, they will take up serpents, they will drink anything, and they will lay hands and recover. And I think I didn't get all of the text. I should have taken some of the text. It says here, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. And have I got it? No, I missed it out. I missed the thing out. And then it says here, he who believes and is baptized will be saved. He who does not believe will be condemned. And these signs will follow them. They will cast out demons and so on. So that is a Great Commission in Mark 16. Go ye into all the world and speak the gospel, preach the gospel. So again, very, very important. The Great Commission in Mark 16. And then the thing is, there might be a contradiction. So here we are told, let me just correct this. Just one moment. Yeah, I've just corrected this. I added verse 15. I'm not sure what's happened, why it went out of the slide. I think I didn't save the slideshow and the computer crashed, but I don't know, no idea. Anyway, verse 15, and he said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He who believes and is baptized will be saved. Yeah. So this is a Great Commission. I'm just can I highlight this? No, I can't, because it goes to the next slide when I click this. But anyway, that is the Great Commission. Go into all the world and preach the gospel. And you think this might be in direct competition or contradiction to let me just go back to this one here. Do not give what is holy to dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine. Now, the Great Commission, the great message, is a pearl. And we are supposed to give it to everybody, even the swine. But it's an interesting thing as well. It says, don't cast them to the swine. Present them. So that the swine again, when you look at the Bible, swine and dogs is a symbol for the Gentiles, yeah, for people who are unbelievers, people who don't want to know God. And Peter picks up on this in one instant, and he says, that people who have gone out from us, they've never been with us or part of us. But like a sow is going back to wallowing in the mud, and the dog is going back to eating up his vomit. So these people turn back to the world, yeah, because they've always been dogs or pigs, but in this picture language, in this figurative language, but they have not been sheep, which is the description for Christians. Yeah, they've not been lambs or sheep, like the way we are described as Christians. But they've got a different nature, and they come back and they always return to their nature. Where a sheep, even though a sheep might attempt to eat its vomit, it'll always go back to eating grass, and it'll not wallow in the mud. Yeah, even though I might try it once or twice. Who knows? I've never seen him do it. I'm not an expert on sheep, but here we go. So this seems to be in direct contradiction, almost. Yeah, it's not, obviously. Yeah, it's a Bible. There's no contradictions in the Bible. And some people might, how can you say that? There's lots, but there isn't. If you dig a little bit deeper and you sort of read it with the right mindset, you will see that everything makes sense and it just fits in like a big jigsaw. So we are to present the gospel to all creation, but if they reject it, again, we're going to go back to this one. We are to shake off the dust from our feet as a testimony against them, yeah, and move on, go to the next place, and Matthew 24 says, when this gospel is being preached to all nations, the end will come, and that is really the job which we have in Mark 16. They almost did it in the first generation, and they failed. Yeah, not they failed, but it sort of came to a halt, and then we've got the medieval period where there was a little bit of missionary effort, but not a great deal. Then we had discovery of the world and all the rest of it, and then we came to the 18th, 19th, and 20th century, where a missionary effort was very, very big, and today we've got, with media and everything else, where we've come to a point that we can pretty safely say that the gospel has been preached to all nations, even tiny nations people don't know much about, and so we know the end is near. The job in Mark 16 either has been fulfilled, is at the point of fulfillment, or will be fulfilled shortly, that this gospel is being preached to all nations and to all creatures. Okay. So the big no's, yeah. The danger is, when we preach the gospel, that we want to level it down to whatever is palatable to the world. We've got these things like coexist and things like that, where people with obviously good intentions try to make everybody happy by just being a bit more tolerant. But there's no tolerance really in Christianity, because Jesus said that they either take his message or they don't. If they don't take his message, they will be condemned. And how can you coexist with other religions, knowing that these religions are leading them into death in their rejection of Christ? And we can't do this as Christians. We can't. There's coexist, this ecumenical movement. It's a lot of hogwash. It doesn't work. No compromise. Yeah. We shouldn't yield to the world or bow down to the world to make the gospel more easier to accept for people. We don't have to do this. It's a pearl. It's precious. Whatever is in the world is just a cheap copy of the goodness and the greatness of God. The love in this world is a cheap copy of the love of God. The ways, spirituality and things like that the world offers are just a cheap copy, which doesn't work very well. But the perfect love, the perfect spirituality, the having the Holy Spirit in your life, that is the big thing Christianity stands for. And we don't need to compromise, and we shouldn't compromise. We shouldn't take the holy and give it to the dogs. We shouldn't take the holy and throw it to the swine, so that they can wallow into it and then turn around and eat us up. And this is what's happening, and this is what I feel or I see in the Christian world, in the evangelical world, where a lot of people are compromising too much. I mean, there was one guy, one big Christian leader, I'm not going to mention his name. He's very rich, very powerful, and a lot of people listen to him. Don't listen to leaders. Read the Bible. Yeah, very easy. Don't listen to big, people with big success in the world's eyes, but listen, to the people where God gives you the witness in your heart that this man, this woman is speaking the word of God to you. So anyway, this big man, he's just been going around, and he was asking people what they want from a church. If they haven't got a church, he was interested to see what they wanted from a church, and then he was building up his church according to what people were wanting from it. And it shouldn't really be the case, The church is God's. It should be led by the Holy Spirit. It should be led by Spirit-filled people, who are led by God in running a group of people and ministering to them and strengthening them in their faith in Christ. And it shouldn't just be a method or a system. So this method and system was implemented in a lot of churches, and I heard one commentator saying, and one theologian saying that, his message came in and the gospel went out. And that was the problem. So it was a message which was, massaging the needs of people, the physical, emotional, soulish needs of people, but neglected the spiritual aspect, which is, very clear. It's a salvation. It's reconciliation with God. It's coming to peace with God. It's getting to know God on a very personal and intimate level. That wasn't addressed. And instead there were all sorts of techniques and other things which came in. Um, if you are in the evangelical world, you probably know very well who I'm talking about, but I leave his name out. Yeah. And it's, to be fair, there are a lot of other, great Christian leaders who've done similar things and started church movements which became very successful, but they didn't last very long. Eventually, they just petered out and they went down. Genuine church and genuine spirit-filled people will stick around, and they will stand the storm. Fake Christianity will not stand the storm. There's one big wind and it's gone. So don't throw your pearls before swine. Leave them wallowing in the dirt, but don't throw your pearls to them. Don't give away what is expensive cheaply. Don't desecrate the holy. Do not lower the standards to please the world, but maintain the standards of the gospel. Okay, just to come to an end of this talk, judgment of God starts within the church. We can see this in Romans. We can see this in Corinthians, where God talks about the Bible talks about this, and we need to bear this in mind, that the judgment of God is within the church. So we need to get our act right, and one of those things is to get the balance right as well, to present the gospel on one end, but then on the other hand, to not give it away cheaply, to not just throw it around and let everybody have it, and ultimately it's going to just end up in a false gospel message anyway. People are not getting saved, people are not getting reconciled with God, and the whole thing just comes down, and it ends up in tears. In Corinthians, we read about that somebody has just done a big mistake, and I think the story was that he was having a relationship with his father's wife, and he was just proud of it, and it wasn't an issue, and he was unrepentant. And Paul said, hand him over to the devil. So what does this mean? Basically, just leave him alone, leave him to it. Yeah. Don't pander to him, don't do it, just refuse your fellowship and let him get on with it. And eventually, this man, we can find this in 2 Corinthians, in the second letter Paul wrote. He repented, and he came back, and he saw that it straightened out his life. And I think that is basically a sign of true Christianity. We make mistakes, but then on the other side, we always gravitate back to the origin of our faith. So the message we have is precious. It is not for sale, and it's not cheap. And this is the contradiction here. It's free, but it's still the most precious pearl you will ever find. It's free, but it's still precious. And the problem is that when something is free, people don't attach any value to it. So if you get your Rolex given to you, you may not attach much value to it, and if you lose it, it's not a great deal. But if you have to work for about 3-4 years and you buy yourself one of these watches, and then you lose it, it's a big loss to you, because you didn't get it free, but you had to pay a lot of money for it. You had to pay a big price for it. And it's the same with the gospel as well. No, the difference is that even though it's free to us, God had to pay a big price for the gospel. So I'm going to leave it at this point. The main thing is, again, just to sum it up, we've got these two issues here, the two calls. One of them is to preach the gospel to all creation, and the other one is to not throw the pearls of what is holy to dogs, and not cast pearls before swine. So they are the two almost contradictory things. Basically, it means don't give it away cheaply. If people don't want to know, don't force them. Just turn away from them and shake off the dust off your feet, and let them to it. Knowing that what you have is precious, and if people reject it, the rejection stands until they return, until they repent and go back to wanting it. And then on the other side, the Great Commission still stands, to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. We need to do this, and this is a job we have to do right to the point when Christ comes back. Okay, thank you for listening. This is just the websites briefly right at the end. It's bpnradio.com. So it's Bravo Papa November radio.com, seismicradio.org, and we've got crusaderradio.co.uk. Okay, thanks for listening. God bless and bye-bye.